Hey, hey.
Hey.
Once again, speaking to you from the past, but this time it's for a good reason. Last week, it was because Michael was patriotic. This week, it's because Michael is a brown man, disguised as a white man. You want to tell him about your show tonight?
Yeah, those aren't mutually exclusive, by the way. If anybody's ever been to Orlando, you'll see a
man.
lot of brown people decked out in American flag gear listening to Leonard Skinner.
You gotta shout out your show, because there will be people listening to this or watching this who will be in the Indianapolis area tonight.
Yeah, Jazz Kitchen.
Who will want to come see you play congas, damn. Just do it.
Yeah, Jazz Kitchen, Latin night. They do it every Thursday night, 7 to 10. This time I'll be in there. I think the DJs are still going to be on the dance floor, but we'll be in the dining area. 10-piece salsa band. We do it every first Friday down here in Bloomington, but now you're going to see us in Indy. First time in this space. So, yeah, come out.
You got a sexy life, man. Like podcaster, what do you call it again? Afro-Cuban musician, percussionist, drummer. You're a goddamn jazz drummer. I mean, we know what they get.
Well,
what do you mean? Well,
yeah. I'm thinking.
Well, yeah.
But I'm thinking about Roy Haynes being voted best dressed in Playboy all throughout the 60s. Over Miles Davis, over everybody. Nobody's cooler than Roy Haynes.
What's your point?
Oh, nothing. But just we're the coolest.
Wait. Oh, I see. You mean Wait, Roy Haynes played what?
Yeah, drums.
Oh, okay. So but drum set, traps.
Yeah, he played kit.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I do that too, but I do that too.
I don't know if drummers are sexier than Miles Davis.
I mean,
trumpet players? I just convinced a 14-year-old boy to play trumpet from trombone to trumpet, because I didn't say this, but basically he's going to get girls.
You'll get more girls doing trumpet than trombone for sure.
No, but I think trumpet's the sexiest of all. I was thinking about this. Maybe guitar. Drums are bad because we're in the back.
Yeah, we are in the back for sure. That's a problem.
I don't like that part, being in the back.
All my life in high school, I thought girls were looking at me in class, but they were looking at the clock behind me in the back of the room.
Exactly, man. And we're sitting down too. What? Mm-hmm. That's not hot, man. Meanwhile, Johnny Guitar Dick is up in the front, spraying the audience with his music semen.
Yeah.
The whole thing, the solo, they always make it into a penis. I don't know why they do that. And the front man on the mic, of course, I'm thinking David Lee Roth. It's not cool. And meanwhile, we're not only we're behind the band, which is symbolically saying the second-class slave citizen back there. We're behind the drums. You can't see anything. And then we're sitting down. It's so emasculated. I don't know. I think drumming's a bad idea.
Yeah. You need to do the Tommy Lee solution, which is to build a giant hydraulic rig that escalates yourself above the audience.
And look what that got him. A sex tape with Pamela Lee Anderson, who became Pamela. Yeah. Which, by the way, is an underrated sex tape. And I do recommend people revisit that. It's a classic.
It's culturally forgotten. There was a whole,
what
was it, AMC? Yeah. There's an AMC series about it, but everybody's forgotten about that one. That was
I'm just saying it's good for, it's good for both audiences, men and women. That sex tape really holds up. Let's get to the news. Dead babies. What do you want to do? American politics, super sexy things. Who wouldn't rather talk about Joe Biden's dementia than Pamela Anderson's tits? I mean, who? Well, see, this is the sickness that we're dealing with, Michael Weimer.
I want to shout out Pamela Anderson just for actually standing up for Julian Assange for the last decade. Every public appearance she's ever made.
There you go.
You've mentioned him.
See, here you go. Here you go. Oh, so I see. So what's more important about Pamela Anderson is her position on Julian Assange than her tits. Why would you?
No,
what we want is
Barbed Wire is a great movie. That I'm with you. It's incredible cinema.
Do better.
Yeah.
No, the point I was making there is I've been a political person my whole life, although I will say it's never been my entire identity, that's for sure, unlike some political people, but certainly I've been a political person my entire life. And the entire time I have lamented it because it's such a narrow, mean, in every sense of the word, right? There's a hostile aggressiveness constantly at play when you're in politics, no matter what side you're on. And it's mean in the sense that it's narrowing and small. It reduces life, it reduces human personalities and complexities and psychology and all that, the human experience, into what is political, what's important. It sucks, man, the political life. And I don't know why you and I keep pursuing it, except that I asked you to do this show.
I mean, I like to think that our work is, what's the word, cross-discipline, and that we bring in history and philosophy and culture in a fun way, and that politics in general is like the most disappointing soap opera ever, but yeah, I think we connected in a way that's satisfying beyond just that. And as long as you don't have any allegiances, you can actually find it pretty entertaining, and there's a lot you can glean from it.
Hey, listen, I know this for a fact. I can say this: several thousand people every week get something from it. I know that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, I'd like for someone watching this, not in the chat because there is no chat because we're doing this pre-recorded because Michael's a Latin jazz star. I want to know.
Oh, real quick on that tip. I haven't.
Yeah,
this has been out for like 3 or 4 weeks, but check out Blind Shovel. The Blind Shovel interview came out like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I didn't get to promote it on here, but yeah.
You're on Blind Shovel.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my.
Michael Olivo's podcast. Yeah.
Oh my. I love it. I didn't know this. I mean, I knew you were planning on it. I knew you were planning on it, but I didn't. Oh wow. Okay. Mm-hmm. Is it out?
It's out. Yeah, yeah. And yeah,
fantastic.
The last interview with Vacuous Vocation was more on politics, and this one's more on art. So get the full picture.
Yeah, this is an art podcast that is also a very smart and based art podcast, which you can't really find. Meaning that this is really the only art podcast worth listening to. And your boy Michael Weimer's on it. You're getting out there. You've been on more podcasts than I have been in the last 6 months. A lot more. Yeah. I forgot what I was going to say. Let's do news, since this is going to be a truncated episode.
Yeah, I've got some bimbo news since we're talking about Pamela Anderson.
Who? Oh, bimbo. Oh, right. Yeah. Yes. Right.
I think this is important.
Bimbo
Amber Rose.
Ubermensch, by any chance?
No.
Too bad.
No, the OG Bimbo Ubermensch, Amber Rose.
Oh, right. Sure.
Dated Ye. But she founded the Slut Walk, as everybody remembers. The peak of campus feminism in 2015 was the Amber Rose Slut Walk.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. She's endorsing Trump, and she's going to speak at the RNC convention.
Meanwhile, okay, this is a great segue.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't know she had moved to the right in that way. Which is, it's very funny. So first thought is, okay, yes, of course she did, because MAGA is completely pornographic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the whole movement is like sexy as hell. I mean, meaning like in a Sarah Palin kind of way, in a Las Vegas MILF on vacation kind of way.
In a hotel bar kind of way.
Yeah, it's the girls' weekend in Vegas kind of way. You know, the 45-year-old moms who are, finally getting away from their porn addicted husbands, and they're going to show themselves a good time at his expense. That's MAGA to me, in part because it's very libidinal in a great way. Like, it's anarchic and chaotic, and they embrace that. And there's a libidinal element to that. And then again, also, obviously, the women, they foreground, and the way that they talk about gender and sexuality. And I mean, it's a sexuality that's like 1957 Playboy magazine kind of sexuality. It is not 2024 X videos sexuality, but it is certainly like, it is a thing that the Puritans did not like. it is a sexuality that has always been present in American culture, but that the formal culture did not embrace or actually rejected. You're not allowed to show cleavage, right? If you're a U.S. senator. I mean, if you're a woman. I mean, it's, you know, MAGA is that. And it started with Sarah Palin, I believe, who kind of became MAGA-ish recently. There's a funny thing. And in fact, I saw someone on Twitter just said this like a few days ago about how that portion of the right wing in America is like completely hedonistic. Like a lot of them are swingers and like they're, what did they say? They do recreational. Oh, they like microdose mushrooms and they're cannabis dealers probably, or, you know, they own dispensaries now. And, yeah, there's a very odd thing. So meanwhile, Project 2025 comes out. At least I shouldn't say it's been out for a while, but like everyone makes a big deal of it because they want to make it into like Trump's plan to take over America as a fascist dictator, even though it is actually the Heritage Foundation's regular report that they've done since 1980 called Mandate for Leadership, which is simply like the Heritage Foundation's recommendations for what the new president should do. And they started writing this one 2 years ago. And it's very similar to everything that mainstream Republican conservatives have thought for 50 years. But anyway, in it, and I haven't checked on this, I'm not sure if they called for this before, but in this doc, and I looked at the text, there's one paragraph in it that calls explicitly straight up for outlawing pornography and putting all purveyors of pornography in prison and putting every media platform that allows pornography on its platform to be registered as sex offenders. So like that would mean like the owners of Reddit will be registered as sex offenders for life. By the way, it's a lifetime appointment on the sex offender registry. But, you know, the owners of Pornhub and Xvideos and whatever else there are, like all of the porn sites, all of them will be put in prison. This is what it calls for. But again, this has been standard Republican conservative discourse for a while. I would say it's gotten more heightened around porn in recent years because porn is now dominant and will never be vanquished. And will never even be, I don't think, restrained in any meaningful way. And so this is kind of their last attempt to stop the centuries-long sexual revolution that their ilk has been trying to stop and forestall. So I'm not worried about it, but it does speak to, you know, the mentality of these people. Much of the document, Project 2025, if you don't love it and embrace it and celebrate it and like are willing maybe even to fight for it, I don't want to be your friend. Because more than half of the document is about reducing the federal government, reducing the power of the federal government, eliminating agencies such as the Department of Education, which I'd love to hear an argument for why it should exist, reducing the number of federal employees overall, and then, of course, granting power over what federal agencies do to the president, to the executive, which constitutionally is correct. And do we want a deep state operating with zero accountability except to itself, not even to the president? Now, I'd rather it not exist at all, or I'd rather it be accountable to Congress. But of course, this is a major step in the right direction, away from a permanent, liberal, democratic, meaning ideological, deep state, permanent administrative state, federal employees at high levels who make administrative executive decisions about U.S. federal policy by virtue of possessing the jobs that they have, but who are completely committed ideologically to the liberal democratic agenda. Eliminate them. For sure, is what this calls for. And there's no, I mean, if you're not for that, I don't really know what you're for. I mean, if your position is you're for a large bureaucracy in Washington, D.C., I don't know what you're for, except for continued dominance of the liberal democratic agenda. Because that's who that is. 90+% of federal employees are Democratic Party operatives. So that's what Project 2025 mostly calls for. The thing about outlawing porn is exactly one paragraph, and I believe it's like an 800-page book, The Mandate for Leadership, the Heritage puts out every 4 years since 1980. It's a massive, massive tome. And I looked this up, exactly one paragraph is devoted to outlawing porn. Now, it's a really bad paragraph. Trust me. I'm not saying otherwise, but the overall thrust of it, I would vote for over if I were forced to, certainly over the Democratic Party agenda, even with the outlawing porn part, and even without the, and here's the other part that I'm not so thrilled about. It calls for the immediate deportation of every illegal immigrant in the United States. Now, again, constitutionally, it's an unassailable position. Logically, rationally, again, I think it's a very powerful argument. I mean, if you want to live within the parameters of American law, if that is the end all and be all of truth and goodness, American law, then yes, you should call for the immediate deportation of 10 million, we think, maybe 15 million, but certainly Heritage Foundation has said it's like 10 plus million human beings living, like with addresses, like living in apartments and bedrooms and houses and living inside the United States, to deport every single one of them. Sure. I mean, that's your position. I think it would be not feasible, but that's the lame argument against it. B, it would require massive federal power, the deployment of massive, cops, armed 10 million people all over the country you'd have to deport. Do you know what kind of police action that is? In 1917, 18, and 19, they did exactly the same thing with anarchists and communists. This is when Emma Goldman got deported back to Russia. That was like, I think it was in the hundreds of people, maybe a couple thousand. And these were all like communist, anarchist, weirdo bohemians who all lived in the same neighborhoods in Chicago and New York. I mean, I don't know how many cops were involved, but it couldn't have been more than a few hundred. The Palmer raids of 1919. We're talking about 10 plus million human beings in every single city in the United States of America. And this is the position of this document. Project 2025, by the way, was written by, I think they said 1,000 conservative pundits and political leaders and activists, etc. This really does represent the mainstream of conservative America. I get it. Yes. Rationally, logically, legally, like, yes, those people don't belong here. I get it. Like, according to the US law, of course, they should be deported immediately. But is this really... Go ahead, Michael.
I was going to say, they represent policy nerds. They represent DeSantis people. They don't necessarily represent conservatives broadly in the culture. Although I think the border is like the number one issue for sure for most Americans.
Don't you think they represent kind of like the edge, the border between mainstream Republicans and MAGA Republicans? And by the way, I heard that something like 200 or 300 Trump people who worked in the Trump administration were co-authors of Project 2025. So it really does come out of the Trump movement as well. It's a Trumpian thing. He's denying it. By the way, people don't know this, but like, he has denied knowing anything about it. Literally, he said, I've never heard of this thing, which is, who cares? But like, Trump people, MAGA people in his administration co-wrote this. So I think it does represent broadly conservative right-wing opinion in America, no?
Well, the federal government is just so massive. So like, if Nikki Haley wrote something, you can't say Nikki Haley, former Trump employee, former part of the Trump administration, wrote something and that's representative of who Trump is. It's more so that the Republican Party had power, so all the Republicans worked for him at the time.
Right.
But yeah, I think mostly like the people really behind this, they endorsed DeSantis from the get-go, and those people tend to be on the nerdier side.
Well, wait, you don't want to just blow it off as like a wonky nerd thing.
Not
I mean,
wonky.
it does represent thinking on the right broadly, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. But
okay.
I don't think it represents Trump necessarily. It does represent thinking on the right, but it doesn't represent. Yeah, it's this. Like DeSantis is different than the establishment. Like DeSantis represents like actual conservatives who don't like Trump because he's boorish and not solid on policy, but also are anti-establishment in certain ways, but not others, not foreign policy. So it's like a conservative domestic policy nerd, but not a radical foreign policy person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. So there are some, what you're saying as you were speaking, I was thinking, God, there really are some amazing contradictions within the right wing.
Yeah.
That have not been no one's even started to resolve them. And you just pointed to several of them. The one I'm pointing to today, and I want to point to aggressively, is the one around sex and sexuality. And Donald Trump, the fact that Donald Trump is the current figurehead and leader of the American conservative movement. And you could very easily argue that the American conservative movement was formed and maintained around largely issues of sex and sexuality. Around abortion, around homosexuality, around the family, around pornography now. And Donald Trump is your leader?
Well,
Guys?
it's like liberal families,
which I just love. I think it's the most delicious thing. Go ahead.
Liberal families are less likely to get divorced. Like infidelity and divorce and drug problems and things like that are more likely to happen in conservative families. Yeah, it's that contradiction.
This is what Jack, the perfume nationalist, and I think we're the only, and you are the only people who say this. Like, it's everyone else is completely confused. They think that the right wing are puritanical and the left wing are hedonistic, and it's like, no, it's the exact opposite. And this is again what I've been talking about. If you want to find unabridged expressions of heterosexual male libido, or just libido anywhere of any kind, in American mainstream or just American politics, and this is for radical politics, mainstream politics, look, guys, everyone think about political parties, political organizations, political movements. Think about from BLM to the Republican Party to Mitch McConnell to the Women's March to like all of it, the Socialist Workers Party, all of it. Do you see expressions of libido, sexual desire in any way? No, they're all puritanical. Isn't that wild?
The closest you can get to it is the bloodlust of the socialists.
Yes, they're absolute. Yeah, lust is the word. Lust for killing Republicans and rich people.
Mm-hmm.
It's what got my mother off for decades.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't have to go there. So but the only place I have seen actual bona fide expressions of libido of any kind are at MAGA rallies, Trump rallies, probably CPAC even, you know, I mean, it's on the right. And then we'll look at Fox News.
Mm-hmm.
Look at who they choose to be the anchors, the female anchors for Fox News, and always have. Megyn Kelly's like one of the hottest women you'll ever see in your life. They chose her to be their news anchor because of her political acumen and intellectual rigor. No, and she's one of hundreds, literally at this point, hundreds of extremely hot blonde women who have been news anchors at Fox, because the right wing, interestingly, is not ashamed of that form of sexuality, which is male heterosexual sexuality. Amazing. And so you've got this, but that's the same people, Fox News, Trump, MAGA, who are calling for banning porn, making it illegal. Who are, like, make the idea that Megyn Kelly, who I'm sure how many American men have jerked off to, the idea that Megyn Kelly is the one, I think she's done this, calling for banning porn, and women who look like her and present themselves like her, who are and the MAGA movement, which who's he married to? Who's Donald Trump married to? A supermodel who, again, how many men have jerked off to her? Like, and you're all calling to ban porn? Well, then maybe marry someone more like Laura Trump, or better, Barbara Bush. Laura Trump, Laura Bush, Barbara Bush. Marry your mom. Do that if you want to truly be good Puritans. There's some amazing contradictions around sexuality on the right in America that are just hilarious and delicious and amazing, and which they haven't even begun to attempt to reconcile. The left is like unified and coherent. They are puritanical from top to bottom, except for trans people and gay people. They're allowed to be promiscuous and have fun and watch porn. But everyone else, the 90, whoever's left, 98% of the population, we must act like Puritans sexually, according to the left. That's their contradiction.
Mm-hmm. Well, also, it's not really about sex with trans and gay people. Like, they treat you like a pervert if you suggest that homosexuality has anything to do with sex. Like, they're like, what do you, it's all about who you love, and it's all about having a partnership throughout life forever. Sex has nothing to do with this. Why are you so obsessed with what's in people's pants? They'll always tell you if you talk about transgender people. Like,
yeah, this is one of many reasons. I mean, no, that's the fundamental reason I have not been a partisan of the transgender movement, which is that to me, it's always been not just asexual, but anti-sexual.
Yeah.
There's an embrace of ugliness.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the beginning of it. An embrace of what is disgusting to most people. Not just an embrace, like an attempt to celebrate ugliness, right?
Well, you're celebrating the literal act of sterilization is what's happening here.
And then, well, that's the deeper part, right? Yeah. Exactly, right. Right. The removal of the genitalia.
Yeah.
What, dude, I never thought about that. That's
guaranteeing that many people will never have an orgasm in their entire lifetime is what's happening.
Wait, yeah. Michael Weimer, I've never heard that argument. That is so genius. That's the crux of it. That's the bottom of it. That's the fuck. Wow. Have you ever heard anyone else make it, what your argument just was? That is amazing. How did I never think of this? What the fuck, dude? Seriously, that's amazing. The removal of genitalia, where all the nerve endings are, which, and if you don't want to go biological, go cultural, have always been associated with what? Obviously sexual pleasure. Removing those things has been the central policy position. Removing genitalia has been the central policy position of the trans movement. And so how could it be anything, dude, anything other than not just a puritanical, but a radical Sharia law kind of level puritanical movement? You're removing fucking body parts, man. Like the crazy Muslims do in Saudi Arabia. Mm-hmm. When they cut off your hands for stealing shit. Now we're cutting off your dick, your pussy, the whole thing, your tits, the whole thing goes, because those are the things that do what? Transmit pleasure. Damn. It is the Michael Weimer. It's like the distillation and apotheosis of Puritanism. It's like American Puritanism, the spirit and the soul of Cotton Mather, has found its purest expression now in 2024 in the mouths of 18-year-old blue-haired children who claim that all sexuality, really, I think is what they're saying, all sexuality is evil. And they'd rather simply be in the middle, in between, marginal, in between, right? This is the way they talk about it. I'm neither woman nor man. I am not sexual. And then asexuality, these same people invented as a category that they wanted to be respected and honored and revered. This is the moment right here, the trans movement in America in 2024 is the moment when Puritanism of Cotton Mather and the fucking Pilgrims on Plymouth Rock, those people with the three-cornered hats who banned dancing and all forms of sex and made sure that married people had sex through blankets and holes in blankets and etc. We know about them. They finally won. The Puritans, the hardcore Puritans finally won. But where did they win? They won in Oakland and Brooklyn and Cambridge and Madison, Wisconsin. They won in this little weird subculture that you can only find among intellectuals of trans people. This is an amazing moment. Thank you for pointing that out. No, that's incredible, dude. I never thought about that. Like the removal of the genitalia. Like, hello, what else could that be? Like, we don't like sex.
Yeah, it's
of
like
any kind.
It's like the chastity belt of the 19th century. Like it's
we don't like not just that we don't like sex, we don't like pleasure. Because hello, last time I checked, that's where you get a lot of the pleasure from is the genitalia. Get it out of here. We don't want that. It's confusing.
Yeah, no, it is.
It's politically politically so confusing.
But I mean, I have nothing but compassion for these people because they've like they view sex as inherently dangerous and bad, and that's where it leads to. But to tie this up full circle.
Yes.
Amber Rose now, the founder of 2015 campus feminism, the slut walks, the I'm a woman, we can have sex, we can dress however we want to. That doesn't mean that, you know, we're any less of a human being because of how we dress and how we behave. That is now full-on MAGA speaking at the RNC in 2024. If I had a time machine, I don't care about killing Hitler. I would take 2024 MAGA Amber Rose to a 2015 slut walk.
There is something, I might say many things that are libidinal. I'm going to say this again, libidinal about the MAGA Trump movement that you simply will not find in modern liberalism. Modern American liberalism, Democratic Party liberalism, New York Times, Nation Magazine, NPR liberalism. Okay. Have you all noticed it's been sexually sterilized?
Yeah.
There is no discussion about actual lust, libidinal impulses, feelings. Like, it's not discussions about body parts and the way they move us. Like, gone, eradicated. This is what I lived in and grew up in. But on the radical right, what's called the radical right, the MAGA right, no, you got chicks in red, white, and blue bikinis in like all the videos, basically.
Yeah, you've got Lauren Boebert giving a hand job in a theater.
Thank you,
liberals. Yeah.
Lauren Boebert, like what I would pay to see some, you know, for some like real pictures from Boebert, you know, like what I would pay. Literally, how many American men would pay for that? Of course we would. But but here's the great thing about Lauren Boebert. Even though she's like whatever, has Down syndrome when it comes to policy or whatever, I don't care. She has embraced it. She's embraced her sexuality. She's got like pictures of her. What is she? She owns, I love this. She owns a bar in Rifle, Colorado, in which all the bartender chicks and all the waitresses they have holsters with guns that are, I think they're loaded even. And that's their whole thing. But they're all, of course, wearing bikinis, and they're like Hooters models, you know. And this is Lauren Boebert. This is the Republican Party, one of their leaders. This is one of their like young generation leaders. They're embracing at least some libidinal impulse, like sexuality is not dead. Nietzsche taught us about this, right? If you find a political movement or any kind of movement, social movement that is ascetic and rejects and renounces basic human desires, be very skeptical. Be very skeptical. And he said, I'd rather embrace a religion, a politics, a movement that is about my essence, my body, my soul, my desire, my genitals. But that's not, it's amazing. So you find it today. And like Milo Yiannopoulos is another example of this, right? This flaming faggot who was like the spokesperson for American conservatism for a while there, right? Great example. Again, before him, it was the governor from Alaska, Sarah Palin, same thing, whose whole thing was her sex appeal. Ivanka Trump. Mm-hmm. It goes on and on and on and on. The Fox anchors, it goes on and on and on. But on the left, oof, any expression of sexuality, either masculine or feminine, is punished, renounced, and most importantly, silenced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, on the debate stage, they're like Biden was trying to shame Trump for having sex with Stormy Daniels. Like, yeah.
Right. He was like, and he had sex with a Trump porn star. I was like, yeah, and that's a bad thing? Is that a I mean, that should be on your resume. No? Like, I thought, I have a friend who had sex with a porn star, paid for it. And I'm like, I mean, if you hadn't paid for it, I'd respect you more. Which apparently Trump.
I think that was the legal case of that, is that they met at a golf tournament, a celebrity golf tournament, and then they had sex, and Stormy was like, I'm a prostitute, and this is my profession, you're supposed to pay me. And he's like, but we just made love. That's what Donald Trump said.
Donald Trump says we made love.
Yeah. And then that resulted in the hush money. And then, yeah, that's where we're at now. But
Donald, I mean, he might tell women he loves them, you know. I guess eventually he does. But only to serve his own purposes, don't you think?
I mean, I think.
Well, wait. No. So the question really is about his narcissism, like Trump's narcissism. I vibe with it. Like, I like it. I find it amusing, either amusing or I can sort of relate to it.
Yeah.
Whereas all the liberal left, they just find that's what they find to be most threatening. That's what they hate the most, right? Is his narcissism.
Yeah.
His particular brand of it.
Well, now the left is coming to terms with narcissism. Like, was it Chuck Todd talked about it recently on a podcast with Biden, that he's now realizing that Biden is a massive narcissist that only cares about his career, because he's, at the dementia stage now. And then if you look at it 5 years ago, his family was in crisis. They're hiding the granddaughter of the stripper at that time. And he decides, while this is all happening, to run for president while he's showing early onset dementia and Parkinson's and all that. And yeah, I think the Democrats are careerist and narcissist in the same way, well, in their own unique way that's even more malevolent than Trump's narcissism. Trump's narcissism is very transparent and celebratory and fun.
Exactly.
And you can't help but smile and laugh at it. Like, it's
very
nothing
ghetto.
But joy. Yeah.
And it's very ghetto and hood. Like and this is why I said this in 2015, I think, and 16 publicly in many like articles and podcasts. I mean, he really was the first Black president. And for those reasons, I said this. Yeah, I elaborated this in many shows and articles back then. The embrace of one's own ego, the way that Trump does it, is basically identical to the way that rappers have done for decades, right? There's a bombast and a self-aggrandizement and a lack of humility and a lack of modesty. Again, those are modesty, humility. Those are Puritan values. Okay. So everyone think about that. And this has kind of been the central break between Black culture and white culture since forever, since slavery. Black working class culture has generally been comfortable with has generally celebrated the kinds of self-aggrandizement that Donald Trump engages in. Donald Trump is Black. Even though, yes, I know he was born to a multimillionaire and in like bougie, what was it, Outer Queens, Forest Hills or whatever. No, but he's had a working class culture in his head since the jump, and I don't know why, but he has. Maybe it's because he used to hang out in Times Square when he was a teenager, looking for trouble. That's what he said, and I believe him. But that's the difference between Trump and the rest of the political establishment. He has that kind of working class, street level, and one might even say black American attitude toward things like ethics, morality, fudging the truth, whatever. I mean, it's just true. He's black, and those, and then also, and this is the most important thing, the embrace of the libidinal, the pleasurable, the material, the physical, right? I married to a supermodel who's the hottest chick you've ever seen. I live in an apartment that's or a house that is gilded and that is covered in gold. I fly in these fancy private jets. He shows them off. I have a private helicopter also with the gold. My name is on the buildings that I own. I own an entire resort in Florida where everyone can come and hang out, and there's a golf course and a helicopter pad and all the rest of it. And this is me, and I am the shit, and I created all of this. That is straight out of a Jay-Z video. That's Drake. That's Kendrick Lamar. That's all of them. That's every rap video I've seen for the last 50 years, 40 years. Like, it's all about self-aggrandizement, which is part of American slave culture. Donald Trump is part of American slave culture. And no one, except your boy here, will talk about that.
I mean, no, that's why Amber Rose is endorsing him.
And there it is. And now we got Amber Rose. Who's a greater representative of American slave culture than Amber Rose? My God. Who was she fucking before all this happened? She was
most famously Ye, when
oh yeah, right.
When what was it? The MTV Music Video Awards, when Ye interrupted Taylor. He was drinking Hennessy all night and had Amber Rose on his arm, and that was the big problem. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. But she's multitude of celebrities since, but yeah.
Exactly. Should we transition to dead brown babies, or do you want to do something else?
The NATO Summit, potentially. I think the real geopolitical thing is Ukraine, more so than the dead brown babies.
Can we pause?
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, we're back. I was thinking that Ukraine is actually probably more important, or at least developing more, than the Israel situation. Just last week, or just a couple days ago, was the NATO Summit. And all of these leaders came in. It was over 100 leaders and all on stage, theatrical performance. But Anthony Blinken said that different European powers are going to be supplying F-16s to Ukraine. And I think they're also going to be stationed outside of Ukraine. So this is sort of like an invitation for Putin to attack beyond Ukraine's borders, and for this conflict to escalate further.
I was lying in bed yesterday morning looking at my Twitter feed, and I saw something about Blinken says F-16s will be flying in Ukraine this summer, and I clicked and I watched the video of Blinken saying just that American-made, American-supplied F-16 fighter jets will be shooting down potentially Russian planes this summer, when this is the summer, so that means now. I don't know what noise I made, but I was watching the video and I made some kind of noise or exclamation, and my girlfriend said, "What's going on?" And she doesn't know much and doesn't follow it closely, but she has wanted this war to end for a long time, and at least for the United States to stop funding it, which is what I think normie Americans should all want instinctively. And she said, "What on earth are they thinking of?" sending F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine now when clearly they've lost the war? And we have 300,000, we don't know, at least 300,000 dead Ukrainians. And a lot of those are women, by the way, not just men. 20% of the country's gone, taken, been taken, not coming back. And then Sevastopol, we got to talk about this. This is amazing. So, it was like a week ago, the Sevastopol attack in Crimea killed 37, 40 civilians, Ukrainian civilians on the beach. There's some video of it too. They were hit with ATACMS missiles, which are provided by us. Yes, United States of America. ATACMS missiles hit that beach and killed a bunch of civilians. Now, this is a place, Crimea, the Crimean Peninsula, and Sevastopol is this major military port city that's been a major military port city for centuries and has been, most importantly, the most important military outpost of Russia on the Black Sea for centuries. And this is why in 2014 they had to make sure to capture it, which they did. And annex it, which they did. And when they did it with no resistance whatsoever from the local population. Oh, shit. Wow. Huh. Zero resistance from the local population in Crimea when Russia took it in 2014. Zero. None. Not a person was shot. Not one person. Not a bullet was fired in anger at anybody. Why? Because 90+% of the people who live in Crimea for centuries have identified as Russian and have wanted to be part of the Russian Federation in recent years. But of course, the annexation of it in 2014 was evidence for the West, meaning NATO and the EU and the State Department, evidence to them that Russia is an expansionist, aggressive, imperialist, evil force. And so they ended up last week sending missiles right there. And this is where my people come from. The Jewish part of my family went through at some point in Odessa and Sevastopol, Crimea, that whole area in the Black Sea. That's where the Königsberg family was located for much of the 19th century before we got expelled, or they got expelled by the pogroms. It's just not making sense, and it hasn't made sense for a long time. And so now we're sending even more fighter planes, more fighter jets, more bombs, more missiles into this place, that much of which, and certainly the eastern and southern portions, have been identified as Russian for centuries, guys. Centuries. There is really Donetsk and Lugansk and Crimea. There is really no argument for why we should be fighting any war at all to keep those Ukrainian, because the people who live there don't want to be Ukrainian overwhelmingly. So if you're anti-imperialist, you need to be on the side of those people of Eastern and Southern Ukraine who want to be part of another empire. Sure. But yeah, we killed a bunch of people, a bunch of civilians, including children, women, people on the beach last week in Sevastopol on the Black Sea because of this geopolitical conflict, because Zbigniew Brzezinski said in 1997 in the Grand Chessboard that the United States should control Eurasia. That's what it comes down to. That's why we killed those people. The people, the civilians, the women, the children, the men on that beach in Sevastopol and Crimea died because American political leaders think that the United States needs to control the Eurasian landmass. And because Putin, the Putin government, and Russia generally has challenged that mission, they are willing to kill civilians on beaches. That is it. In a sense, it is truly that simple. It is truly that simple. If you think the United States should control the Eurasian landmass, Europe and Asia, those places way over there that 98% of Americans will never visit, never see, if you think it is essential that the United States control politically and militarily Europe and Asia, that a whole big chunk of land way over there, massive chunk of land, way bigger than us over there, then yeah, we should have killed those people on that beach. Yeah, we should have pumped weapons into Ukraine for the last 3 years to make sure that 500,000 people are dead. Yeah, we should have done all these things. We should have expanded NATO. Of course, as we have, right up to the borders of Russia. Sure. Provoking them to go to war with us. Sure. But if you're an American and you're living in Orange County or Seattle or Kansas City or New York City or Miami, or Indianapolis or Bloomington, and you, when posed with this question, do you think the United States should dominate, which is what it is, dominate Europe and Asia politically and militarily? I wish Americans would be asked those questions directly, but they're not. But here we are. No one knows what's going on. And there we are. Our government is doing these things abroad, and 90+% of us don't even know. Not only that the government's doing those things, they're not even aware that those places exist in the world. Michael, do something about it.
As this last week has been going on, and Biden has been giving definitive interviews saying that he's going to stay in the race, the big thing that he points to as an accomplishment is what he's done in Ukraine and with NATO and Russia. And like, that's what he always harps back on, is like, but you see how much we've done to attack Russia? Like, you see what we've done in Ukraine? I can't step out now. That's like his number one accomplishment on paper. It's always Ukraine and NATO first before talking about anything else.
Hey, man, they've killed at least 50,000 Russians.
Yeah.
Cause for celebration. 50,000 Russians, half of whom were Wagner conscripts, who, meaning they came out of prisons. They were conscripted by Wagner, essentially, not conscripted, but they were offered what's it called, clemency from prison in exchange for fighting on a battlefield. And the other half are conscripts, draftees, people who were drafted into the Russian military. There's a handful of volunteers, but the vast majority of Russians who have died, and we think it's around 50,000 at this point, were one of the two. You killed them. Good job. Congratulations. And I've heard many people say, Lindsey Graham said this, my friend Matt Welch said this, my other friend Michael Moynihan has said this, other people have said this. The pro-Ukraine, anti-Russian crowd will say, well, at least we Lloyd Austin said this, the Secretary of Defense. We have degraded is the word, the Russian military's ability to perform such operations. And much of what that means is they've killed a bunch of Russian soldiers. Okay, so this is the objective. This has been the objective, is to kill a bunch of people who happen to be forced essentially into serving in the Russian military, either because they're in prisons in Russia and they're offered some escape by Prigozhin, the head of Wagner, to fight in the Wagner mercenary group for Russia, or they're just directly conscripted by the Russian government and forced to serve and fight. How many Russian people are actually excited to fight in Ukraine? Very few, and we know this. I mean, there's a lot of evidence of that. But that's what we're about. That's what this war is about. Supporting, sending weapons to Ukraine, sending money to Ukraine, sending CIA advisors and military advisors to Ukraine, sending special ops soldiers to Ukraine to assist them in various ways. That's all it's accomplishing. It is maybe destroying a few Russian tanks, sure, but do you know about Russian tank production and Russian artillery production? They have factories all over the country doing nothing but producing military equipment round the clock. Mostly what we're doing is killing people. That's what we're accomplishing. We are sending the message like a steady drip into Russian society every single day. If you resist Western imperialism, you will die. Or at least many of your young men will die. Conscripts, if they're drafted into the Russian army, they will die. We will kill them. If they're mercenaries, if they work for the Wagner outfit, they will die. In Bakhmut, in Avdiivka, wherever it is, they will die. 50,000 and growing, they will die. So why don't you just get with the Western project, join the EU, join NATO, do what we say, and have the red, white, and blue of the United States of America flying all across the Eurasian continent. That's where we are.
Are we going to do the Patreon show after this?
Of course we are. So show it.
Yeah.
Unregistered live, hanging out with all the peoples. Anybody who wants to hang out after Unreported every Thursday night. And all you got to do is be a patron, $5 a month minimum or more, whatever. That's it. $5 a month. You get to be a patron and hang out at our Zoom meeting on Thursday nights after Unregistered Live. Go to patreon.com right here. See that URL /unregistered and join up at any level. And we have a really good time, as we will tonight.
For sure. Yeah.
So what are you going to play tonight?
Like what tunes?
Yeah.
Oh, just classics.
Like what?
Celia Cruz, Bemba Colorado. We have an arrangement of that. That's really nice. We're doing, probably Kimbra, Joe Arroyo. So your Colombian salsa, Grupo Nietzsche. We'll probably play Cali Pachanguero.
Nice.
Your Venezuelan salsa. So, Llorarás, Oscar de Leon. Yeah, just
a nice dance floor there.
Yeah, huge dance floor.
What's the name of it? It's called
the Jazz Kitchen.
Jazz Kitchen, which is a famous place in Indianapolis.
Yeah, it's pretty much the spot for jazz. There's the Chatterbox downtown, but like that's way too tiny for something like this.
If you're like anywhere, if you live in Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, Kentucky, seriously, and you're a fan of this guy right here, tonight, show up. Jazz Kitchen, Indianapolis, 8 o'clock, showtime.
We'll play 7 to
doors
10.
Open? 7.
So doors actually open at 6, but we'll play at 7 to 10.
There it is.
Yeah.
Everybody, show up.
Thanks.
Show up. All right, man. We're good. Thank you so much, dude.
Thank you. Yeah.
Have a great show tonight.
Thanks, man. Yeah. Appreciate it.
All right.
Cool.
Peace
Take
out.
care. Yep.